Revolutionary ambition ending in profound disappointment. The 2022 regulation era arrived with a sweet promise to forever transform the face of Formula One through the revival of the legendary ground effect technology. The core vision was crystal clear and highly ambitious: to eradicate the curse of dirty air that for decades had hindered wheel-to-wheel racing action on the track. The hope was to create a spectacle where these land jets could shadow each other closely through corners without losing any aerodynamic stability. However, as time progressed, that promise began to feel like a receding mirage. The world's elite drivers are now openly voicing their deep frustrations, suggesting that this regulation set has fundamentally failed its sacred mission and instead injected a structural flaw into the very DNA of modern F1 cars, which should represent the pinnacle of automotive engineering. Fading hopes beneath the resurgence of violent dirty air. In early 2022, hope soared as the new cars displayed immense potential for close-quarter following. However, the sheer brilliance of team engineers and rapid development paradoxically turned into a boomerang that shattered the regulation's initial purpose. Aggressive aerodynamic evolution has caused the dirty air effect to return with a vengeance, reaching levels nearly comparable to the pre-2022 era. Drivers report that the difficulty of tailing an opponent through high-speed sections has returned to an alarming state.
Presenter TV host. The innovation expected to be a long-term solution lasted only a fleeting moment, leaving pilots in the same predicament where chaotic air remains the primary enemy of overtaking. The promise of clean air has been swallowed by the relentless pursuit of downforce, rendering the revolution largely hollow. A handling crisis, shattering driver self-confidence. The driver's discontent is rooted far deeper than just following distances. It is a fundamental issue of how it feels to command these massive machines. This generation of F1 cars is heavily criticized for handling characteristics that are deemed poor and counterintuitive. Because the primary source of downforce is generated directly beneath the floor, specifically in the center and rear, these cars possess an inherent tendency for severe understeer. This phenomenon is particularly agonizing in slow corners, where the nose of the car seems stubbornly unwilling to turn despite the driver's input. The once agile and aggressive driving sensation has been replaced by a heavy, cumbersome feel that makes the car sluggish and extremely difficult to tame on the asphalt, stripping away the joy of pure precision. Dangerous stakes behind aerodynamic balance acts. To combat the annoying inherent understeer, drivers and engineers are forced into extreme measures by dialing in massive amounts of front-wing downforce. However, this creates a terrifyingly high-stakes balancing act.
While the move successfully mitigates understeer, the side effect makes the car hauntingly sensitive and unstable. Drivers frequently report a horrifying unpredictability. Even a momentary loss of balance can instantly transform the car into a wild beast, causing violent snap oversteer in high-speed sections. As noted by top-tier stars, these cars now feel heavier, less aggressive, and significantly stiffer than their predecessors. It is a precarious dance on a razor's edge, where a single millimetric error can lead to a catastrophic loss of control at 300 kilometers per hour. Shifted racing styles forcing the sacrifice of intuition. This shift in technical philosophy has drastically impacted the driving styles required on the track. Some elite talents have successfully adapted by prioritizing much smoother steering inputs and maintaining strict aerodynamic stability through every maneuver. However, for many other drivers, this challenge has proven immensely burdensome, forcing uncomfortable changes upon their natural racing instincts. The ground effect era demands a very specific driving style, where bravery and flamboyant flair must be sacrificed for rigid mechanical precision. It is no longer about who is the bravest to push the absolute limit, but rather who is most capable of restraining themselves to keep the airflow beneath the floor stable. The art of driving has been clinicalized, leaving little room for the raw, emotive genius of the cockpit.
The tragedy of champions and driver adaptation failure. Perhaps no driver illustrates this suffering better than the veteran world champion who openly admits the difficulty of predicting his car's behavior. This uncertainty arises most acutely when the car hits the apex, systematically destroying the natural confidence and aggressive approach that usually serves as his greatest weapon. A similar fate befell the popular Australian driver, who struggled to find his rhythm due to a failure to adapt to a car with such strong understeer tendencies. This phenomenon proves that modern F1 cars no longer provide space for a driver's intuition. They are imprisoned within a machine that requires very specific, almost delicate treatment. For some, this feels like a betrayal of the pure talent they have honed over decades, turning a once natural act into a constant mental struggle. Technical labyrinths confusing the industry's geniuses. Team engineers are also in an incredibly uncomfortable position because the performance window for these cars is notoriously narrow and unforgiving. To achieve optimal downforce, the floor must be run incredibly close to the track surface, a setup extremely sensitive to minor variables such as tire temperature, track texture, and speed fluctuations. This technical necessity introduced the infamous phenomenon of porpoising, the violent bouncing resulting from pushing floor performance to the absolute limit.
A car that should glide smoothly instead leaps like a dolphin, creating immense physical discomfort for the driver and an additional workload for teams to find mechanical solutions without sacrificing speed. It is a puzzle where the pieces change shape every time the wind direction or track temperature shifts. Data correlation failures and costly downgrade threats. Furthermore, major teams continue to struggle with misleading data correlation issues that drain massive budgets. Engineers frequently discover that upgrades rigorously tested in the wind tunnel fail completely when applied to the actual racing circuit. The result is often a very expensive downgrade, where new components actually make the car slower or even more difficult to handle. Only a handful of teams have consistently mastered the complex interplay between suspension design and downforce distribution required to neutralize these negative traits. Failure to understand the aerodynamics beneath the car has caused the competitive landscape to become volatile, where even a powerhouse team can suddenly find themselves tumbling to the back of the grid due to a single misunderstood aerodynamic update. New hope toward the dawn of the 2026 regulations. New hope for drivers and engineers is finally appearing on the horizon as the massive regulatory shift of 2026 approaches. This scheduled technical pivot promises a return to the flat floor concept that has long been missed by the entire paddock.
This change is eagerly anticipated because it is expected to abolish the restrictive negative handling traits that have shackled drivers throughout the ground effect era. With a flat floor, cars are expected to provide more honest feedback, possess a wider setup window, and allow for the return of more aggressive and satisfying handling styles. It is a light at the end of the tunnel for those who feel they have lost the pure joy of racing at the highest level, promising a machine that works with the driver rather than constantly fighting against their every input. Remembering complexity for the sake of pure racing. The current ground effect era may be remembered in history as a period of immense technical complexity that offered very little satisfaction to the main actors behind the wheel. However, great hope remains that 2026 will usher Formula One into a new period defined by the purity of racing and the greatness of human talent, unshackled by rigid mechanical constraints. Everyone yearns for the return of machines that allow drivers to explore their limits without fear of unpredictable behavior. The future of F1 must be a stage where courage, strategy, and pure skill once again become the primary decisive factors for victory, leaving behind the technical entanglements that have acted as a barrier to true racing drama. The ultimate goal is to put the race back into racing, where the fastest human, not the best floor, wins.